Hello and welcome to the new episode of Spookier Times, a podcast of horror, gothic, and weird fiction across media. I'm your host, Robert J. Gannon, and we are going to be talking about the origin of Frankenstein tonight. Kind of. We're splitting our topic in two ways. First, that wild party held by Lord Byron that led to the challenge to write ghost stories among some of the greatest writers of the Romantic era that led to the creation of the Victorian Gothic, and Nora Unkel's film A Nightmare Wakes. First, let's talk about that night. That night has been portrayed in cinema many times. The earliest was actually in Bride of Frankenstein, that opening sequence that sets it up with the party where they're telling stories. And suddenly this woman steps forward and says, I have one, and then it's the Bride of Frankenstein story. Only that story is actually closer to Frankenstein than the Frankenstein Universal picture. You get the idea. Anyway, Lord Byron. He fled England, he was over it, he was done. He became friends with the Shelleys. Well, Percy Shelley and Mary Shelley, who then was still Mary Godwin, not married to Percy Shelley. Percy was cheating on his wife with her. That's its own issue. As well as her sister Claire Claremont. They all met up in Switzerland at this beautiful mansion he had, and they met up with his friend John Polidori, who was a doctor. It was really rainy for a while. They couldn't go out and party like they wanted to. So Lord Byron said, hey, I got a challenge. Y'all think you're writers? Let's write ghost stories. Write the most horrifying story you can think of. 2 of the 5 people in attendance completed that challenge. John Polidori wrote one of, if not the first, vampire novels in the English language called The Vampire, spelled Pyre like a fire. That's going to be its own episode of this because I'm actually a big fan of the text. There's a lot to go into with that. The other person to succeed, and succeeded on a much grander scale, was Mary Shelley writing Frankenstein. Lord Byron did write a fragment of a story that he called a fragment because he was that obnoxious. And it was blatantly stolen from John Polidori's work. It's the same plot. Percy Shelley didn't write anything from this, and Claire Claremont was no writer. She was just there to have a good time. This idea of a drunken night of revelry among expatriates partying in Switzerland has become its own trope in horror. It's been done many times in film. And that brings us to the main topic for this episode, A Nightmare Wakes. This is a new horror film from writer-director Nora Unkel about the creation of Frankenstein. And Nora Unkel, I am still thinking about this film. I've watched it 4 times now since it came out. And it only came out in February, like middle of February, like a couple weeks ago. Nora Unkel takes the mythology of that night, as well as biographical information about Mary, Claire, Percy, John, and Lord Byron, and creates a whole new story. It is loosely based in history. One of the things you're not taught about Mary Shelley when it comes to writing Frankenstein. Well, one, she was the mistress, not the wife at that time. And she genuinely wanted to be married to Percy. He wasn't happy in his marriage. That's why he left the wife. All that kind of stuff. She also wanted to be a mother. She also miscarried. It goes deeper than that. She miscarried, and she lost a child in infancy. And Nora Unkel includes those as major plot points in this story. Mary Shelley, in her vision, wants to create something greater than herself. And when she loses her first child, she becomes obsessed with writing this book. She's told that she is going to be a high-risk pregnancy because of the miscarriage and is prescribed bed rest. And Percy says he will leave her if she chooses writing over keeping the child safe. Suddenly, A Nightmare Wakes turns into an adaptation of the Yellow Wallpaper, with Mary Shelley slowly losing her grip on reality, unable to write the characters rattling around in her head, and wondering what's happening outside of her room. Percy's been disappearing again. Percy is disappearing on her the way he disappeared on his first wife. And it gets even worse after Percy's father requires them to be married to receive any financial support. So Mary starts to have vivid hallucinations of Victor Frankenstein, Elizabeth Frankenstein, and the monster living among her. And those hallucinations look like her husband Percy, her sister Claire, and herself. Uncle is diving deep into so many issues of sexism in literature, the arts, and entertainment. Mary Shelley's worth as a writer, as an artist, as a creator, is invalidated the second there's a chance she'll be a mother. All the hard work she's put into the novel Frankenstein is dismissed as unimportant. Her husband can travel wherever he wants and does whatever he wants and is always considered the poet, the writer, the genius, and Mary's the sickly soon-to-be mother that needs to make sure the child gets out okay this time. Because, it was kind of her fault the first time because she tried to not just be a mother, and now we're going to force her to lay in this bed until she gives birth. And then what happens? Percy's not there. Mary's not taking it well. Mary dives back into the novel, and it gets darker and darker and crueler as time goes on, separated from her husband, who suddenly doesn't value her at all as a wife or a mother, because her change in mental state caused by being trapped in a bed for 4 months and not being allowed to express herself kind of bums him out. Ooh, it's getting me mad. I don't want to give too much away about this film. Some of the amazing things Nora Unkel does. One, she's intentionally playing fast and loose with the timeline of these stories. The events are built in a different order to coincide with the creation of Frankenstein. The overlap wasn't as great as the film pretends it is. It works narratively. It is shocking and scary and upsetting in all the ways it's meant to be. But the fast and loose timeline doesn't play. It doesn't stop playing there. The costuming, the set design, the props, the architecture present in the film are vaguely accurate to different time periods in Mary Shelley's life. But none of them are contemporary to when she would have been writing and publishing Frankenstein. Every character is in a different part of her life, past, present, or future, representing what is and isn't, what could be and what could never be, the possibility of creation and the reality of failure. Past failures, future successes, all visible at all times. Time does not matter. Creation matters. No one will stop Mary from creating her masterpiece. Not now, not ever. You take away her quill, she'll see it come alive around her. And you think she no longer knows reality from fiction? She's really just pre-writing her greatest work. There's more. I am not going into spoilers. The twist ending on this film, I described on Twitter as a sucker punch. Because it is. I love Frankenstein. It is one of my all-time favorite novels. I think it is one of the great science fiction and horror novels, one of the greatest novels ever written. I'm one of those people that will full blank say, no pause, full chest, Mary Shelley invented sci-fi with Frankenstein. Because she did. I'm a huge fan of the work. I've studied it. I've studied her life. I've studied the influences, the creation, all of that stuff. Nora Unkel clearly has too. Nora Unkel also wants to make a feminist horror film critiquing how women are treated in the industry compared to men. And suddenly does whatever she needs to in the last 15 minutes to make that point loud and clear. Talk about saying with your full chest. Nora Unkel makes a huge swing that is either going to work for you or not. I was sobbing. I was breathless. I had trouble sleeping. It is so well done. And I've gone back and watched the film again and again and again to find the points where she hid the foreshadowing to justify this twist. Because in the moment, as shocked as I was, and it is rare that a horror film pulls one over on me at this point with all my years of watching them and writing about them. I've seen thousands. Not an exaggeration. Oh, it's all there. She dotted her I's and crossed her T's. She ran the spell check and the grammar check. It was workshopped and she disregarded stuff that didn't matter to her. A Nightmare Awakes adds up to that ending. And your reaction to it, I'll say it, is a litmus test of your reaction to the prevalence of the theme she decides to explore using Mary Shelley. And why would she use the story of Mary Shelley for that theme? Did you know there's at least 2 versions of Frankenstein? Did you know that the version that she originally wrote was intentionally suppressed by the publisher until her husband came in and rearranged and rewrote large sections of it? And then said, no, she did it. I just cleaned it up. And that was the version that was sent out? Did you know she wrote a second novel that I think is even better than the first one? And that did not get pushed because she did not want Percy touching it? Yeah. The founder of science fiction created the genre and then had immediately co-opted by the man in her life. The man who couldn't publish poetry for many, many years without her editing it because he didn't trust it to write himself, but he trusted his wife's revisions of his work more than his own work. Who then had to stick his little pen, stick his little quill all over her manuscript to mark his territory and be able to say, yes, isn't it cute what my wife did? I mean, I helped, but it was her idea. So that's why A Nightmare Awakes is the film it is. And why it is the perfect metaphor for Nora Unkel's critique of the role of women in entertainment. I don't want to go off anymore. I'm going to leave you there. Watch A Nightmare Awakes on Shudder. Go ahead and watch Bride of Frankenstein 2. It's probably the best Universal monster movie. Just saying. And yeah, go ahead and read the novel. It's worth it. Once again, I'm your host, Robert J. Gannon. You can find me there on all social media. All the links are in the description below to follow me, follow my work. I write 5 articles a week on my website. I'm live on Twitch 5 days a week. New content goes up on TikTok every day. Gaming videos go up 5 days a week. And I have a couple books out and more coming very soon. Check out, if you like criticism, hashtag 31 Days, the collection of horror essays volume 1, which features 65 articles of new horror criticism written by me. Until next time, explore horror and stand Mary Shelley.